All right, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to your Thursday lab live training. We are still on the topic, and we will be for the next few weeks on our seller listing mastery, building a repeatable model for seller representation. That is our topic this quarter. And we've been having some very productive conversations on this topic. Looking forward to continuing the topic. Now, I do see some new faces, and I'm happy to meet even the new faces and our returning realtor partners. For those who this is my first time meeting you, my name is Racole Jackson. I'm a South Florida real estate and finance attorney. A little bit about me personally. I am originally from Florida, Miami specifically. My background, I attended UF, so I always say go Gators. Moved out to California where I got my law degree from Santa Clara University School of Law, where I was the founder of the Real Estate Law Society. Came back home to Miami, where I attended the University of Miami and got my LLM in real property development. I got my first real estate license in California. I got my first loan officer license in Florida. I am a licensed realtor in Florida and Georgia, and a licensed loan officer in Florida and Georgia as well. So all things real estate is what we do over here at Purchase Ready. So who are we? And for those of you who this is your first time joining us, who is Purchase Ready? Purchase Ready is an ecosystem of transaction services for realtors. Now, what we layer on to our transactional services of title, lending, and legal is education. And so we have created one guided path from learning to closing. That is the intention. We understand, and of course, this is not by theory. This is by practice. I know what it means to have to learn how to piece together all the parts of a transaction and all the people that work in a transaction, right? I mean, clearly I do because I that's what I do. But I want you guys to understand that the beginning of the learning process is not lost on me. I mentioned before that the purchase and sale contract, what, 20 years ago, the way I learned it, someone put me in a room with the purchase and sale contract and said, "Here it is, read it." And I was an attorney at that time, but I had to read all those pages myself. And so I can just imagine how you all feel having a foreign contract with foreign language placed in front of you and having to learn not only to understand it, apply it, and then enforce it. And you got to do it on the big stage, right? With clients over your shoulder, right? And so, with that being said, that's not all. That's just the purchase and sale contract. What about title and closing? What about, for the first time going through the closing process? I mentioned to you guys before, I wrote a class, I'm under contract. Now what? That was based upon a realtor coming to me with a very sizable deal and was like, "All right, Racole, I got him under contract. Now what?" I was like, "Oof, we need to write a class about that." And so I get it. And then you're under contract. Now what? Do you know how to read a settlement statement? Do you know what the title agent is doing? The things that they're asking you for? If your client asks you why title's asking them for a thing, do you know how to respond to them? If this is your first time, of course not, right? Oh, and what about the mortgage process? What about when the client doesn't understand why they don't understand DTI, right? Or they don't understand the different loan products, or they don't understand why they cannot why they cannot afford a particular property because this property has an HOA with a monthly HOA of $750 when your budget only allows for you to allocate 300. All of these things you have to learn as a realtor. You have to become I wouldn't necessarily say subject matter experts because you are not going to necessarily be a subject matter expert, but you have to have working knowledge of it enough to confidently represent your customers, right? So that's what Purchase Ready Academy and specifically the Purchase Ready Lab was born out of. And it's born out of the lab specifically is born out of now that you've learned it in the academy, let's put it in place. All right. All right. Now, with that being said, I mentioned before, how do realtor partners work with us? For those of you who you're new to the room, you're like, well, I never even heard this before. Of course, the first thing you want to do is reach out, right? First thing you've done, you've connected, you're in the right space, and you're going to receive emails. And for if you don't reach out to us, we'll proactively reach out to you and say, hey, we see you're new to the community. Do you have any questions? Do you know who to ask for what? Do you know how to work with us? Do you have any questions about working with us? And again, the entire goal of the community, of the ecosystem, is to provide you with one guided path from learning to closing. So it becomes a relationship of done with you, creating your own transactional ecosystem done with you by showing you what each service provides and how you're going to weave it into your business. All right. All right. So, where have we been? For those of you, just your first time joining us, where have we been? We've been a couple places. We still got a little ways to go, but we've at least settled in on the first stop, which is I understand that I must build to create a repeatable business. We know that listings have to be the basis of that. Your listings have to be the basis of that because listings can we, like we say, listings have babies, right? Listings create the most leverage. They create the most exposure. People are going to look at houses. They're not going to look at buyers. Of course, we're not neglecting buyers. We're not forgetting about buyers. We're going to deal with buyers probably on our next quarter. But listings are the foundation. They're the foundation of the business, right? And the goal is, I know some people are like, well, I enjoy buyers. That's great. Sellers want buyers and buyers want sellers. And so one of the best things you can do if you 100% enjoy working with buyers, one of the best things you can do is have an inventory of properties that you can show to those buyers that you like to support and get to the closing table, right? So that was one of the things that we settled in on, that we need to ensure that listings are the basis of our business. And then we talked about seller lead generation. Okay, so since we say, Racole, that listings is the foundation of a repeatable business and a scalable business, where do I get these listings? How does that how does that happen? Like where are they, what type of what type of leads lead to listings? So we talked about that. And then we talked about once you have those leads, how do we now nurture them? How do we now utilize a database to constantly keep you in front of those leads, to market to those leads? Earlier in between the first session and the second, definitely in the third, we talked about there's a difference between marketing, which is messaging, putting a message out, and prospecting, which is getting in front of the person that you like to do business with, or you would like to do business with you, right? And so the database is important because, of course, number one, it collects and houses all of your contacts. Number one. Number two, it's important because it works for you while you're doing other things. It works for you while you're doing other things. Case in point, before we get on these trainings every Thursday, you guys get what? An email and a text. You know, Racole is not sitting here texting everybody, right? The database is doing that. The database is doing that while I'm doing what? Preparing the room, getting ready to see you guys. So that's what I want you guys to look at. While you're doing other things, the database will communicate with those leads, those prospects that you have met or spoken to, right? So that was essentially where we've been. Now, for today's discussion, go ahead and grab your handout, as we always do at this time. Grab your handout. All right. Because since we've talked about types of leads, we talked about how to nurture those leads in our database. Today, we're going to talk about prospecting. Marketing is the database. It's going to be emailing them. Prospecting, getting on the phone with these leads, is where we make it happen. All right. So, seller prospect to listing appointment conversion is our topic today. I'll be honest with you. So one of the things that I did when I was looking at our schedule, I actually pulled back and I pulled this piece out so we can have a specific conversation about it versus keeping it in a larger topic. We needed to have a conversation about this specifically, and we started this conversation earlier today on our office hours, but we're going to go into it more deeply during this session. So, mastering the seller conversation. The big idea, what we need to take away from our discussion today is we want to shift. And of course, today's discussion is about prospecting, getting on the phone and having a conversation. But at the end of today's training, I want to ensure that our thought process concerning telephone prospecting or even in-person prospecting shifts from a combative rebuttal blocking and jarring back and forth with the prospect versus a consultative conversation, right? And I even wrote down the term when I was writing the content, diagnostic discussion. So you look at your conversation with these prospects as a diagnostic discussion, a consultative conversation, right? So our goal is to do not disturb. Our goal is to, first of all, we're going to master the two critical conversations required to win expired and for sale by owner listings. Earlier in the session, we decided that we were going to focus, well, for the purposes of training, you guys had about 7 lead types and you were supposed to decide which one you wanted to focus in on. For the purposes of our training theme, we're going to focus in on expires and FSBOs for sale by owners, just because they are the ones that have the highest intent, right? These ones have raised their hands and say that they have a property that they would like to sell. These ones are easier to identify for that in that regard. And these ones are easier to likely get the contact information for, right? Versus circle prospecting, which has its benefits, but for the purpose of training, we're gonna zoom in on expires and FSBOs. So that is the mission, to master those two critical conversations. The method that we're going to settle in on is we're going to replace traditional rebuttal scripts where you are essentially kind of like competing for the gotcha with consultative conversations, diagnostic discussions. You're going to look at that conversation differently, right? And then the goal, we're gonna see that the goal of these conversations, these diagnostic discussions, these consultative conversations. I think you guys probably even feel different when you say that. Consultative conversation. A consultation is just a conversation. I'll work on ensuring that I get my point across better potentially, but if I call it a conversation, I know that the goal is not to, again, not have a bunch of, drop the mic and bunch of zingers, right? It's a conversation. So we're going to be able to uncover the hidden obstacles keeping sellers from moving forward and guide them to their own conclusions. I told the team this yesterday in our office hours. As an attorney, when I put a witness on the stand, first of all, I always know the answer to every question I've asked. You guys are going to know the answer because we've talked about this before. There's two reasons primarily why an expired price and a FSBO is trying to sell themselves. They want to save money, likely either money or control. They don't think a realtor is worth it. You know the answer to the question. Your line of questioning is going to help these two prospects realize that answer, right? So you know the answer. Again, we're taught never ask a question that you do not know the answer to. You know the answer. If it's expired, it's price. Very rarely is it anything other than price. And even if they say, oh, it's condition, it was the roof. Well, what do we do when there's a roof issue? We either fix the roof or we give a credit for the roof. It still goes down to the bottom line, right? So that's what we're gonna learn today. So the tale of two sellers. Remember again, we're gonna focus on two seller types: expireds and FSBOs. For expireds, we're going to look at what their surface objection is. This is what they say that the issue is. But then what is the real underwater belief? Like what are they hiding? Remember we talked about the iceberg analogy. We talked about the tree with roots analogy. Using the iceberg analogy, what are they saying? The tip of the iceberg is the issue, but under that iceberg, what is their real belief? And then what is your core obstacle with that lead type? So with the sellers, they're gonna say my house didn't sell. It didn't sell. It did not sell. But what their real belief is that the market didn't support my price, or the next agent should agree with my price. I just got the wrong agent. I selected the wrong agent. They don't understand the value of this property. But ultimately, like we said, never ask the question you don't know the answer to. You know the answer. It was pricing. You can ask, and you could be surprised that, the an outlier where if it expired, that's one thing. If it cancels, then you affirmatively cancel. We decided we can't move right now, or something along those lines. But if it's a true expire, it's likely pricing, right? FSBOs, surface objection. I hate realtors. I don't want to pay commission. The underwater belief, what they're really not saying is, I just don't see the value and justifying to justify hiring a realtor. I just don't see the value. What do they do that I can't do? I can put a property on the MLS just like everybody else. When they send a contract, I'll read it. I'll see when they want to close. I'll see what their price is, and I'll just take it from there, right? Their core obstacle is they do not see the value. And then a small portion of them, not very small, but a good portion of them, they don't want to commit. They don't want to commit to an agent. They feel like I want to put it out and everybody go find a buyer, right? So they don't want to sign the listing agreement. But the key insight for you is that every expired and every FSBO objection is usually just a variation of these two distinct beliefs. It's a variation of these two. And I tell you guys, and again, I'm going to speak slowly and calmly because this is just it. When you get to the point where you have the consultative conversation and the diagnostic discussion questions down pat, you'll cut right through what they're saying in this on the surface to what their real understanding should be about that issue. One of the other points that we want to make sure that we're clear on is that the ultimate objective when you get on the phone, guys, is to win the appointment. You're not trying to win the listing. And I paused there for a reason. You're not trying to get them to agree to sign when you get there, right? So you're not trying to justify your commission over the phone. You're not trying to prove your marketing plan over the phone. You don't want to give pricing advice. Don't give away the plot. Don't give away the plot over the phone. You don't even want to discuss paperwork over the phone, right? The only thing you're trying to do is your sole objective is to earn the right to show the seller your approach in person. Does that feel different? I'm not trying to, you're not trying to win the listing agreement. You're not trying to win an argument. You're trying to win an appointment. You're trying to win an opportunity to get in front of them, right? You're trying to win a face-to-face meeting, right? I think that feels better. That's less pressure. You're not trying to win an argument, right? You're trying to win an opportunity to have a discussion in person, to continue the discussion in person, right? You're trying to win the opportunity to continue the discussion in person. People do not argue with their own conclusions, right? They're not going to argue with their own. If this is their conclusion, they're not going to argue with it. They've already made a conclusion. So your job isn't to convince them. You're not learning rebuttal scripts to counteract them. You're going to find out, and with our training today, you're learning to just ask questions so that the seller will convince themselves. You're learning a diagnosis discussion, not rebuttal scripts. Now, script is not a dirty word, because script just means that there's particular language that you've memorized, right? So there's going to be particular questions that you memorize, yes, but these questions, the paradigm shift is that these questions are not for the purpose of rebutting their objection, but to bring the seller to a different understanding concerning their objection and the decision that they've made, right? Like being a therapist. You guys gonna be a therapist anyway. So start from the call, right? So the way we stop arguing and we start diagnosing, the old way is to push for a commission right there on the call, right? Oh, what's your commission? Or I'll only pay 1%. Don't start having an argument with them right there on the phone about why it needs to be 3, right? Relying on aggressive rebuttals. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to beat the rebuttal game. You want to win the opportunity to continue this conversation in person. And that could even be one of your closes. I don't think that's in my notes. I would love the opportunity to continue this conversation in person. Hey, I would love the opportunity to continue this conversation in person. Do mornings or afternoon works better for you? It won't take long, 30 minutes at most. I can bring out, if it's about marketing, again, if it's on pricing, I can bring out market data and a market strategy. Does Tuesday or Wednesday work best for you? I would love the opportunity to continue to continue this conversation in person. That's why you want it to be a conversation. Nobody wants to continue an argument, right? They'll continue a conversation, but they don't want to continue an argument. So if we start off the call arguing, why would I invite you to my house to come argue with me? I would love the opportunity to continue this conversation, right? So the new way, instead of, again, pushing and arguing, hear the objection without defending yourself. Pause and stay curious. Staying curious just means asking more questions. Ask a diagnostic question to uncover the root belief. All right. Top agents do not overcome objections by having better rebuttals. They ask better questions until the seller convinces themselves. Just ask better questions until the seller convinces themselves. Right? So if we use the iceberg analogy, at the tip of the iceberg, the expired listing, my house didn't sell, but their real belief again is that the market didn't support my price. The next agent will agree with my price. With the FSBO, tip of the iceberg, what they're going to tell you is, the surface symptom is I hate realtors. Well, that's because they really don't see the realtor represents something they don't see the value in hiring, and they don't want to be committed because they're just not sure you're going to perform, right? So the thing to understand and why we're going to continue to ask questions when they give an objection versus trying to overcome that objection, because that's probably not even their issue. So it's almost like they've taken you down a wrong path. It's what they call it, a red herring. You're chasing what they told you up top. I don't want to pay commission. But what they're really saying is, I want to keep the most money possible. So you're going down the path of why you need to pay commission, but that's not really their issue, right? So don't fight the objection. Don't fight the first thing they say. Discover what's causing that. What's down here that's holding this up. All right. All right. So here's a 5-step. And again, you guys have this in your handout. Here's a 5-step process when you're having this conversation over the phone. Of course, first build rapport. And remember, guys, this has to move quickly. You're not going to be on the phone for forever. You shouldn't. I mean, if it's a great conversation, so be it. But even that should be, you got to keep moving in for the close because you got other people to call, right? So first, of course, you want to build rapport. Who are you? Why are you calling? Even your credentials, right? I've sold 10 homes in that community. I would love to get the opportunity to work with you and market your property for a similar sale. Discover their motivation. Understand why they're moving. I'm curious. Why are you looking to sell now? And why were you looking to sell? Are you still Are you still looking to sell, right? Diagnose the objection. Uncover the belief behind their objection. If it's an expired, whatever their issue is, if it's an expired and they say, we're going to go with the same agent. Of course, there's diagnostic questions around that. Our training today is not going to hit every potential objection, or if what we're talking today about is they say it's expired and I'm just not going to put it back on the market because y'all don't understand the price. You realtors don't understand the value of this property. That's going to be our assumption today, that our expired is saying you just don't know the value of this property. Realtor that sold 100 homes, right? So allow them to say that before you respond. Again, you're going to just ask questions around that, provide perspective, and then invite the seller to meet and show them your strategy. Again, just move right through. In here, nowhere is there an argument. There's no argument in here. There's no argument in here, right? Build rapport, discover their motivation to sell. Why do you think it did not sell? How did you come to that conclusion? What was the buyer's feedback? These are all the questions. You have all these example questions in your handout, right? Provide perspective, then close in, move in to continue the conversation in person. I would love the opportunity to continue this conversation in person, right? Where we are going to spend a little bit more time, because again, this is a paradigm shift for many of us, because the old school notion was rebuttals. But I'm going to tell you guys, knowledge is increasing, as they say. They don't need more information. Your clients do not need more information. What they need is a reality check that information is one thing, but understanding that information for implementation is a whole nother animal. And because this is what you do 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're the best person to support them in that implementation, right? They don't need you saying, well, this is what they know who you are and what you do in general. But how do I build rapport to show my expertise and understanding so that I can confidently make the request to continue the conversation in person, right? All right. So here's what this looks like from a high level, the diagnosis. We don't answer the question, the objection. We ask a question, right? So the seller's objection, I don't want to pay commission. Here's the diagnosis. Is your goal to avoid commission or to keep the most money? Right? Because those are two different things. Or do you just not want to pay commission outright, or you want to make the most money from the sale? And they'll tell you. Okay. And then you can educate educate the client on that point. Invite them to continue the conversation in person. Now, of course, you could have such a good conversation where they say, my only issue is, because of course you're going to say, oh, are there any other concerns you have about working with a realtor? And then you just keep looping. You just keep looping that. And then at a certain point, I would love the opportunity to continue this conversation in person, right? One of the things you want to make sure you do is that you follow the loop. Never jump from their objection straight into telling them, well, this is how it really is. Do not, right? Because that's the rebuttal path. Well, this is what it really is. Versus if you ask questions, then you till the ground to plant the seeds, right? Look at it that way. When you ask questions, you're opening them up, they're thinking through it, and then you plant the seed to continue a conversation. So don't jump straight to, well, actually, right? So let's look closer at the expired listing. Expired sellers, they don't blame the market. It was not the market, it was the agent. It's not the market, it was the agent, right? So they say my house didn't sell. Their belief is the market didn't support my price, or the next agent should just agree with my price. So whatever price I said is what they should agree with, right? You want to use questions to let them discover that the buyer response is the only true indicator of home value. The buyer response is the only true indicator of home value. The barrier to listing is not the previous realtor or their marketing. It is always pricing. If you spent $1 million marketing a gallon of milk for a $100,000. I mean, I want to be radical. $100,000 or $500,000. Do you think it's the marketing why nobody's buying that gallon of milk for $500,000? Or is it just that that's not the value of it? And so, in a consultative conversational manner, that is the conversation that we're having. More marketing of an overpriced product is not going to change the buyer response, right? So we're making sure that we ask questions to let them discover that the buyer response is the only true indicator of home value. So the obstacle is not the previous realtor or the market. The obstacle is pricing. And so some of the consultative or diagnostic questions that we can ask to allow the seller to discover the answers. What do you think kept the home from selling? Of course, they're probably going to say the agent, they didn't market it well. What feedback did buyers consistently give? What advice did your previous realtor give you regarding pricing? What price do you believe would actually attract buyers today? Right? It's just an example of some questions. Every question must allow the seller to discover the answer. Again, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. We know that it's pricing. I've not yet. If you guys tell me in the chat, if you've come across an expired for some other reason than pricing, we can have that discussion, but I've just not seen it, right? So the goal is to pivot away from the previous realtor and focus purely on market pricing reality, right? So let's see what this conversation could potentially look like. Out of curiosity, what do you think kept the property from selling? Of course, they're going to give you their answer. Help me understand what made you arrive at that conclusion, because they're probably still going to be sticking to the realtor that marketed well, the market was bad, right? Help me understand what made you arrive at that conclusion. They're going to explain their answer. The pivot here is you're going to offer perspective based on market data, not personal opinion. Because again, it's the market that's going to determine the price. Would you be open-minded to seeing how buyers actually responded to that price rather than how you hope they would respond? Would you be open-minded to that? To see how the buyers actually responded to that price rather than how you hope they would respond? I love to show you what the market was actually telling you and what I would do differently. Would tomorrow afternoon or Thursday evening work better? Would you be open-minded to seeing how buyers actually responded to that price? Right? Here's another conversation. We just took it off the market. I completely understand. What do you think kept it from selling? They'll tell you why. Help me understand what made you arrive at that conclusion. Again, would you be open-minded to seeing how they actually responded? I'd love to show you the marketing. You always just ask a question. They're gonna give you their objection, what they believe the issue was. You're gonna ask the question. Help me understand what made you arrive at that conclusion. If you don't mind, if you can help me understand what made you arrive at that conclusion, right? And of course, the first thing you want to do is affirm their answer. I get it. Yep, I hear you. So if you can help me understand what made you arrive at that conclusion, right? And then you can even say, just so I'm clear, you would still like to sell the property, correct? Okay, great, cool. So let me pop back. Out of curiosity, what do you think kept it from selling? They're going to say their answer. Now, I'm assuming that you still would like to sell the property, correct? I say great. So help me understand, because I assume you still want to sell it, correct? Yeah. So with that being said, help me understand what made you arrive at that conclusion. Okay. And since you said that you are still interested in selling the property, would you be open-minded to seeing how buyers actually responded to that price rather than how you hope they would respond? Because again, we're continuing to move it down the path of you do want to sell, right? So it's all conversations. So again, the big idea is using guided questions to help the sellers realize that the market has already spoken. It's the market. This is not your personal opinion. It's not any agent's personal opinion. It is the market. The market is the buyers. The market is the pool of buyers who are ready, willing, and able to purchase the property. The market is the pool of buyers who are ready, willing, and able to purchase the property. Those who are ready, willing, and able to purchase a property said that that property at that price point was not worth it for them. Right? This is how we have to, your diagnostic questions are auditing the past, what they did, reframing the data from that, and then challenging the future if they're just determined to keep the same price. If the market has already spoken once, what would need to be different this time for buyers to respond differently if the price remains the same? I mean, that's a fair question. If the market has already spoken once at this price point, what would need to be different this time for buyers to respond differently if the price remains the same? That's a good question. I'm going to read that again because I think that's even good for realtors to digest. If the market has already spoken once, what would need to be different this time for buyers to respond differently if the price remains the same? If the price remains the same, what else are you going to do differently to get a different response from the buyers? That's a question for the seller. All right. Our next quick category, FSBOs. FSBO sellers do not hate realtors. They simply do not see the return on investment of hiring one. I don't want to pay commission, is what they say. What they believe, the longer this discussion of that short comment is, an agent doesn't create enough additional value to justify the cost, or I don't want to be locked into a contract. So yesterday, I literally, it was funny because as we are working through this content, I was in the bank and a gentleman came in and said he was looking to sell a piece of commercial property, but I want to keep the listing open. I don't want to sign a listing agreement. And of course, I immediately went into diagnostic questions. He was like, "You're good." Yeah, because listen, what would motivate a realtor to work diligently on selling your property without any commitment from you? They're committed. Are you not committed to them? So that and a whole series of other questions. So you just have to be ready to not say, nobody's ever going to do that. Like that's a that's a rebuttal, but you want to ask questions and have them think about it, right? So here, one of the key goals is your conversation should be able to separate the concept of paying a commission from their goal of maximizing net proceeds. That's really what it's all about. It's about the price. They want to make more money. So the real obstacle is a lack of perceived value and fear of losing control over the listing or exclusivity. They don't want to exclusively list with one. They want control, and they want to make sure because they feel like they know best how to get the most money out of the sale, right? Again, the objection is not that I hate realtors. It's just that I don't see the value. And so here's some diagnostic question samples. What made you decide to sell it yourself? What concerns do you have about hiring an agent? What would an agent have to do to make it worth hiring one? What would happen for you to say that agent was absolutely worth every penny? This is a golden question. What would have to happen for you to say that agent was worth every penny? Right? So it's never, it's not commission, guys. It's the bottom line, right? So we want to reframe the conversation around their net outcomes, their net income, and mutual accountability between the two. If they are talking about concerns about signing a listing agreement, right? If they fear signing an agreement, validate that choosing the wrong agent is a smart concern, which is exactly why you should meet first. Again, which is exactly why we should continue this conversation in person. So I can show you the opportunity and the benefits of working with us, the value. Because again, it's all about value. They don't see the value in it, right? With regards to exclusivity, remind the seller that if 5 different agents have partial responsibility, no one is fully accountable for selling the home, right? I'm not committed. he hasn't signed a listing agreement with me. He or she hasn't signed a listing agreement. So I'm not 100% committed to that sale. So here's the mindset shift. You want to break down the barrier of commission by reframing it as an issue of total net proceeds, because we know that that's what it is. It's all about their total net proceeds. So I don't want to pay commission. Here's where we drop in the pivot, separate the fee from the outcome. Help me understand, is your goal to avoid paying commission entirely, or is your goal to keep the most money possible after closing? They're likely going to say keep the most money. Great, because I ask that because those are not always the same thing, right? Paying a commission alone versus netting the most money are not the same thing. If I could show you a strategy that potentially nets you more money after commission than selling on your own, would that at least be worth seeing? Right? That's exactly what I'd like to show you tomorrow. Would like to show you would tomorrow, Thursday, work better. Again, it's always the money. Very few times it's about exclusivity, and you have an objection to that. So you want to tell them, when they say, I don't want to sign a listing agreement, don't defend the listing agreement. Don't defend the paper. Uncover why they don't want to sign it. So the diagnostic question. It sounds like you're less concerned about the agreement itself and more concerned about choosing the wrong agent. Yeah? Great. That's exactly why I like to meet first. And we can continue the conversation on how the value of working with myself and my team to get your property sold. Right? They don't have an issue with the paper. They have an issue with what it represents and what they could potentially be bound to without getting the benefit of their bargain. Right? I completely understand wanting options. Can I offer another perspective? If 5 agents all have partial responsibility, who's fully accountable for getting your home sold? All right. So we have received their objection. We've gone over some diagnostic questioning. The assumptive close. You want to always assume a close, like assume the appointment, right? We assume the appointment by offering time frames, offering days, anchor with value. I would bring market data and a complete marketing strategy. What time works best? Remove any friction. If they're saying, well, it takes too much time, I would, again, this is mutually beneficial to you. I would proactively tell them that it's going to be 30, 45 minutes. All right. Proactive, and of course make sure that your timeline and your scripting and your outline for your listing appointment is honest to that. Now, if it goes well and they continue talking, that's one thing, but get ahead of it, right? Tell them it's going to be 30 minutes, 45 minutes at most, if it goes, assuming we hit it off, or however you say it, right? Now, the other thing, don't forget this: is there any other decision maker available? Is there any other decision maker that needs to be available so that everyone hears the same information? This came up in office hours. Don't forget this point, guys. While you are on the call, you are looking at the public records to confirm who your owners are. You don't want to have the conversation more than once. You don't want to have to convince the listing more than once. It benefits you to go ahead and say, oh, I see Jane Doe is also on title. Is Jane going to be available as well on Tuesday when we meet? Right? We don't want to have this conversation multiple times. All right? All right, 1 second. All right. So, never ask, would you like to meet? Because we're assuming the close. We're assuming the appointment. Never. So we're now never going to ask again, would you like to meet? I know most of you don't do that. I think we've learned that from the outset, that we never ask, when would they like to meet, because we don't want a yes or no. You're going to make an assumption. Again, will mornings or evenings work better? Is tomorrow better or Thursday? Bring the value. I'll bring the market data and a marketing strategy. What time works best, right? I'll bring the market data and a marketing strategy. Does 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. work best for you on Thursday? You can even tie it down even further, right? I'll keep it to about 30 minutes. Would after work at 10 or before work at 10 or after work at 4 work better for you, right? And again, don't forget about the stakeholder. right? All right. So, in summary, your two best leads when it comes to listings outside of referrals or other lead sources is FSBOs and expireds because they raised their hand. They said they want to sell. And it's very clear just by virtue of their category what their seminal issue is. Expireds, pricing. FSBOs, net commissions, right? We know what their core problem is. We've identified that lead type, expired and FSBOs. Their core problem is pricing, commission or net proceeds, and deploy the specific diagnostic script. Remember, the appointment is the sale. You're not trying to get the listing agreement. You're not justifying your commission. You're not proving your marketing strategy. You're not talking about your brokerage and who they are and why they're the best that's not it, right? You're not giving pricing advice. The appointment is the goal. The appointment is the goal, not to win the argument. We're not looking to win an argument. We're looking to win an appointment by having a consultative conversation, a diagnostic discussion. I'm going to say that again. The appointment is the win, not an argument. As a matter of fact, because you're possibly going to come on the heels of other realtors who were argumentative and who were looking to bat down rebuttals, you may have to defuse the conversation, right? You may have to bring the energy to a different place initially if this lead has spoken to numerous realtors, right? So ultimately, you can say, hey, listen, ultimately, just the opportunity to continue the conversation in person. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. If I could show you more information, love the opportunity to continue the conversation in person. Because once you get in person, 7 levels of communication, belly to belly, that's the strongest communication type. All right. That's what you want. You want to get to the strongest communication type, 7 levels of communication, one-on-one, in person, the absolute strongest. Right? Makes the call seem, yes, make them seem less daunting. I'm just having a conversation. And again, once you learn these questions, once you learn these diagnostic questions, it's going to be guys, I'm telling you, it's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. They both have the same core objections. All right. All right. So the 3 points that we've learned. Number 1, our 3 paradigm shifts today. What we learned today. We're going to adopt the consultative mindset. We're just having a conversation. We're just having a consultative conversation. And within the confines of that consultative conversation, it's a diagnostic discussion. That's where the questions are. Where we're really, and when we're diagnosing, we're not diagnosing. Remember, we're not diagnosing to figure out what the answer is. We know what the problem is. We're diagnosing to allow the seller to self-diagnose that that might have been the wrong result conclusion that I came to. That's all you're doing. You're like, oof, that might have been a wrong conclusion that I came to, that not listing it with one agent is going to give me a better opportunity of getting it sold. No, because now nobody is like, see you. It's just like not being married. I see you when I see you. If I don't, I don't. All right. So that's point number 1, that our conversation is a consultative conversation. And in that consultation, we're learning how to have a diagnostic discussion. We're learning how to have a diagnostic discussion, right? Which asks questions to allow the seller to self-diagnose, right? And come to see how their conclusion might need a little bit of tweaking, right? And then lastly, we are going to secure the appointment. Securing the appointment is the win. That's point number 3. Securing the appointment is the win, not the listing. You're going to have conversation about the listing process and whether or not they should list with you in person. I'm going to say that one more time. If they try and back you into why you need a list, that's not the purpose of the call, sir. Well, right? make sure that you keep bob and weave. If they try and, well, why should I list with you? Well, listen, I would love the opportunity to continue the conversation with you in person. All right. So those are the three major points. Remember, never argue, ask another question. Every objection gives you the opportunity to ask another question. Never sell the commission, sell the outcome of your representation. Don't win the argument, win the appointment, right? Don't answer. They give you an objection, don't answer right away, diagnose it. Ask questions. Ask questions till you get clear on to their clear, right? On how their conclusion could be tweaked, because then you're going to educate them, invite them to the appointment. Quick reference, exactly what to say. In your handout, again, are some questions that you can use in your diagnostic discussion. One of the things that I mentioned, I don't think I've ever mentioned it on this call before, but on the office hours, I told the agents about this book, Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents. This is all about consultative conversations. It allows you to not, again, it changes your conversation from rebutting objections to having a diagnostic discussion. Okay. Well, help me understand. Okay. Oh, what makes you say that? And what do you think caused that? Would you be open-minded to another perspective? How important is it that you actually move this year or within the next 90 days or the next 60 days? If I could show you another way, before you make up your mind, what would have to happen for you for this to make sense to you? What do you think buyers were trying to tell you? Sellers want buyers. What do you put in the buyers? What do you think they were trying to tell you? Again, don't try to make your opinion law. What do you think buyers were trying to tell you? Would it be worth 30 minutes to find out? Yeah. Right. So the appointment is the win. That's the sale. What we do not do on the phone, we do not justify commission. We don't prove your marketing. We don't explain your brokerage. We don't discuss paperwork. We don't give pricing advice. Your only objective is to win the appointment, nothing more. Win the appointment, win the opportunity to have the discussion. This is a quote I came across. I actually came across it this morning. And the quote actually says the obstacle is the path. So I tweaked it for our conversation because it's right on point. The objection is the path for you. It is. The objection is the path. Their objection, pricing, net commissions. If you know how to navigate that path, you win your listing, guys. The objection is the path. So if you learn, all I have to do now is learn how to have a consultative conversation, meaning that changes the way that you feel about the conversation. This is consultative. This is not a debate. This is not an argument. It is consultative, right? And then number two, I learned how to have a diagnostic discussion. The way that I have a diagnostic discussion is I learn how to ask the questions that allow the seller to come to their own conclusion about what the real issue is. If I learn how to successfully navigate these two main objections with a FSBO and an expired, I'm on the path. I am on the path to a listing. The objection is the path. For those of you that are still uncomfortable, like, oh, this hurts. The objection is the path. I'm sorry, you can't go under it, you can't go over it, you can't go around it. Unless you can answer those questions for those two lead types, pricing and value of working with an agent, brick wall. The objection is the path. All right? Listen to them, learn how to have that diagnostic conversation, lead them to a better conclusion, and you'll be listing all day. All right? Turn resistance into results. The objection is the path. The objection is the path. You tell yourself that every day. The objection is the path. If I learn how to navigate the objection, then I'm on my path to a listing all day long. Right? All right. So here's the challenge. Call 10 expired listings this week. Call 10 FSBO listings this week. And this is to actually have 10 conversations. Don't just call and hang up. And we talk about that on the morning call too. You want to actually have a conversation, right? Because you want to practice. You want to practice. Focus entirely on asking at least 5 diagnostic questions. You may get there sooner, depending upon, guys, your energy, match energy. You may get there sooner by just asking 3. Remember the presumptive close. All right, this sounds good. I'm glad that we had an opportunity to clarify this. I would love the opportunity to continue this conversation in person. Would Monday at 10 a.m. or 3 p.m. work better for you? Oh, and I also see that Jane is on title. Can we make sure that Jane is also available so that I don't have to, I don't mind having the conversation, but I would love for us to be able to have this conversation once and we can move forward with getting your property sold. Right? Right? All right. So again, conversations, not dials and leave a message. You need to have conversations so that you can practice. You want to make sure that you also, if you hear an objection that you, again, their objections are all the same. If you hear a different variation of that objection, note it so that you can now gather some questions specifically to that variation so that the next time that you meet that objection, you can continue down the path. The objection is the path. The win is an appointment, not the argument. You're not trying to get the listing on the phone. You're just trying to get the highest level of communication, which is in person, one-on-one. All right. All right. It was helpful. I'm glad. Whew, we did it. About 30 seconds left. Any questions? Any questions? If you do have questions that you cannot, you don't have a chance to get answered today, or you think about it after the fact, we are on. We have office hours every morning at 10:30 a.m. 10:30 to 11. It goes by quickly. We will be on tomorrow. If you have any questions whatsoever, guys, and this is an opportunity to not only just get your questions answered, but also learn from others. We had a great one-on-one this morning with Sophia. Thank her for sharing her database and going through some items with us. Objection is the opportunity. Don't answer, diagnose it. Okay, let's see where we are. Are we this here? Yeah. Um, Anything else? No? Yes, no, maybe so.
The one that
All
told
right. Don't forget, the objection is the path to listing. The objection is the path to listing. That's right. Have a great week, everyone. All right, guys, don't forget your handout. For those of you that came in late, labhandout.com, labhandout.com. The recording will be up tomorrow. Make sure that you'll see the email come out. You should also see a text letting you know that is up. But listen to this again. Make sure that you use the handout. Practice, practice, practice. The objection is the path. Guys, if you get like ninja style with the diagnostic discussion, unstoppable. Unstoppable. All right. For those of you who've not had an opportunity to give us a review on Google, I'd appreciate it. We didn't charge you anything. That would be your cost of entry. Have a great weekend. The one before that, oh geez, Dave, you about to be on the recording looking for this. The one before this one? If not, Dave, I will give it to you in the morning. Oh, that one? Okay, good. All right, awesome. All right, guys, for those of you who've had enough, I will see you in the morning. Bye.